All right, everyone. We are live. All right, everyone. We are live. I think we're live. Yes, we're live. This is looking at my recorder and it didn't seem to be on, but we are live. All right. So happy Monday night to you, wherever you're at. I'm in what's supposed to be sunny Florida, but tonight it's like 40 degrees here. So I don't know what's going on, but we're a little cold, a little chilly tonight. Anyway, welcome. Tonight we are I'm continuing my talks on healthy, strong bones and exercises. And specifically tonight, I'm going to be talking about yoga. So I know quite a few of you possibly do yoga or are interested in yoga. And to be quite honest with you, we all know that there's several different types of yoga that are out there. And honestly, there are some that when it comes to building strong, healthy bone, they're really not going to help you that much. So tonight, the first thing that I want to do is talk to you about the different types of yoga and the types that work the best when it comes to strengthening bones. As a review, a couple of videos ago, I talked about my Osteo-Blast Method, which is a type of isometric. If you haven't watched that video, it's part 1 of my exercises to build healthy, strong bones. And I really recommend that you go back and watch that, or watch that if you haven't, because there's this thing called Wolff's Law. And what we need to do with any type of exercise is it needs to be weight bearing, which basically means that we have to stress our body a little bit, our physical body, and really use the muscles, as well as when we use the muscles, we're also strengthening the bones. There's a rule that applies to this. And the rule is that you have to do the isometric, this Osteo-Blast Method. You have to do it between 30 and 60 seconds. That's the sweet spot, so to speak. And the reason why I bring this up with yoga is because there's a lot of different types of yoga, and there's a lot of different types of yoga where you're not holding the poses for extended periods of time. So if you look at a schedule at a yoga studio or an online studio of any sort, and it has the word flow, F-L-O-W, if it has the word flow in it, then more than likely they are not holding the poses for extended periods of time. So just like last week, I talked a little bit about weightlifting and how, if you're lifting weights and you can do, several reps, 30, 40, 50 reps with a 3 or a 5 pound weight, that's really not doing much to strengthen the bones. And the same thing holds true for yoga. If you're flowing from pose to pose to pose, you're not going to be doing a lot as far as stressing the muscle and stressing the bone, which means that it's not very weight bearing. So any type of yoga that has the word flow in it, whether it's power flow or flow yoga, yoga flow, hatha flow, gentle flow, anything like that is really, like I said, it's not weight bearing. The type of yoga that works the best as far as authentically, if you're talking about authentic yoga, is hatha yoga, H-A-T-H-A. If you see hatha yoga, if you haven't been to the class before, maybe call, if it's a number you can call, like a studio, call them and ask them, are they holding the poses for extended periods of time? Because again, you want that sweet spot of 30 to 60 seconds of sweet time. And the other thing that you can do is, once you know some of the poses, you can actually do your own practice, so you don't necessarily have to go to a studio or online, or else work with with someone like myself, a certified trainer, so that you have a very specific schedule and sequence that you do for your yoga practice. Also, the other thing is, and I've mentioned this before, when it comes to exercise and bone health, a little bit every day is better than doing a lot a couple times a week. So in other words, if you did a 15-minute session of yoga that was weight bearing and did my Osteo-Blast methodology in that, and you did it every day for 15 minutes, that would do a lot more good than, say, going to a class that's an hour and 15 minutes a couple times a week. So with that being said, I want to show you some poses that are fundamental poses that really, I mean, I've got 80-year-olds doing these poses and they're not having any problem with them. So these are some, again, fundamental poses that you can start incorporating in your daily life and to help you to start building strong bones using yoga. So the first pose that I want to show you is called mountain pose. Now, with all of the poses, again, we're going to be using my Osteo-Blast methodology, which is different. If you go to a yoga studio, you ask somebody, how do I do the Osteo-Blast methodology in my yoga? They're going to look at you like you've got a third eye, because this is a branding that I have done. And even if you ask them about isometrics in yoga, I am the only instructor that I know of that has incorporated this within the yoga practice. So I'm not only going to show you a couple of poses, I'm also going to show you how to do it so that you're also doing an isometric at the same time. So mountain pose. Mountain pose is going to look like, if somebody looks at you while you're doing it, it looks like you're really not doing anything. But it's actually a very, very active, very dynamic pose. And what makes it so is that you're going to be using this isometric. So I'm actually going to come a little bit closer, just a little bit closer here, so that you can see maybe me a little bit better. Now, for your mountain pose, you want your feet parallel to each other. There's two philosophies when it comes to yoga. Some instructors will tell you feet together. Others will tell you about hip width apart. What does that mean? So first of all, with your feet together, fan out the heels just a little bit when you do this. So instead of having your feet parallel to each other here, fan out the heels just a little bit. What that does is it grounds you. For me, when I have my feet so that they're parallel to each other, if somebody came up to me right now and just shoved me just a little bit of a push, I would fall, I would topple, because I'm not grounded, I'm not solid. And that goes for most people. If you just fan out the heels just a little bit, it grounds you. And you want that. You want to feel solid in your poses. Stability always comes first in yoga. You must feel stable and secure. So with that being said, you can either have your feet here or hip width. What is hip width? If you bring your hands together, this is hip width. Now, you might be thinking, well, I've got all this other flesh around. It doesn't matter. What we're talking about when we say hip width is where the hip bones are located. And for most people, if you bring your fists together like this, that's where your hip bones are. Your hip bones, when you have a straight line down, you're going to have a straight line all the way down past the knees, past the ankles. Or if you did this right here, that's your hip width. So that's what we're talking about. So for our mount, to start out with, I like to start beginners with hip width. Now, a couple of things that you're going to do here. This is what it looks like. Sometimes it looks like this, and sometimes it looks like this. Hands overhead. Either way, you also want to use this isometric. So you're not just standing here, la-di-da. What you're going to do is for your feet, you're going to press the feet down into the ground. So think of the earth coming up to meet you, and you've got to press down or else the earth is going to keep coming up and coming up. So when you're pressing down into your feet, you're going to feel all the muscles wrapping around the bone. You might actually feel like the knees are coming up towards the hips. That's what the feeling you want. This is a very energetic pose. It might look like I'm just standing here, but this would be relaxed. When I press down into the feet, you can see a little bit what I'm doing, but I'm activating all the muscles in my legs. Bring the hands out. Now, if you bring the hands out, I want you to think of stretching the arms out as far as you can. This is also an isometric, just standing here. So again, I'm not here. I'm not doing this. I'm energetically, and notice what happens when with my back as well. I extend up through the crown of the head. So this can be my mountain pose. I can also do an isometric if I bring my hands together. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago for my Osteo-Blast Method of bringing the hands together. So I'm still pressing down into the feet, activating the legs, and I'm pressing my hands together here. Or I can do that up overhead. So that's your mountain pose. It's the foundation of all of the standing yoga poses. You want to feel stable. You want to feel grounded and connected when you do this. And you want to activate all of the muscles in your body. And then you're going to hold it for at least 30 seconds. So let's all do it together just so that you get the knack of this. So press down into the feet, extend up through the crown of the head, elongate the spine. Bring the arms out. We'll do it with our arms out. And really think of all of the muscles wrapping around the bone. Now you're going to breathe with your mouth closed. Be breathing in and out through the nose here. And we're going to hold this for about 40 seconds. It's very active. It's very dynamic. You're using all the muscles in your body. And you're breathing. Don't hold your breath. Go about 10 more seconds here. All right, and then release that. So that's your mountain pose. I'm going to show you a few more. For balance, one of the best balance and basic yoga poses that we can do is tree pose. And you probably have seen this if you haven't done it before. So with tree pose, and I recommend you start by using a wall. That way, again, you've got the stability here. So a couple of things about tree pose. Tree pose 2, you're going to use that isometric or that Osteo-Blast method when you do this. Now, what you want to do, I'm going to shift my weight to my left foot. Now, when you come to your tree pose, one of the things that I see some people doing is bearing their weight into the hip. So when I say press down into that left foot or press down into the right foot, I sometimes see this type of thing, and we've got a lot of weight bearing going on in the hip. We don't want that. So this compared to this, you see the difference? I'm pressing down into that foot, and that's what you want. Again, you want to activate the leg. Use the wall here or use a chair to stabilize yourself. And when you start out, you can either have the foot here on the floor, or sometimes I teach new people by just bringing the foot over the top of the other one. That way you're standing on one foot and you're pressing down into that standing foot and extending up through the crown of the head. So again, you're using that isometric in the leg. If you have the foot on the side, and sometimes you'll see it with the foot on the side of the standing leg, you can either have that on the calf, or if you've got the flexibility, you can bring the foot up here. But you don't want to put it right at the knee. And the reason why is if you're ready to do this type of tree pose, What you're going to also do is another isometric. So you're not only pressing down into that standing foot, but this foot that's alongside the body, you're going to be pressing that in as the other, the standing leg is pressing in, the other one's pressing towards it. So you've got this isometric going on between the two, the leg and the foot. So again, the foot can be up here. Again, don't be in the hip. You want to stand up nice and tall, press down into that foot. And this, right now, I've got my right foot pressed strongly against that left leg. And this might be your tree pose for right now, standing next to a wall. If you've got the balance, you can bring one hand or both hands to the heart. And then sometimes you'll see it here. Again, you can do an isometric here with the hands as well. So this might be your tree. And again, we hold this for at least 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, you'll come out of it. And then, of course, you'll do that same thing on the other side. I want to show you one more tonight, and that's Warrior Two. Warrior Two is another fundamental pose. And I always recommend, even if you're not new, you might want to try this against a wall, because in your Warrior Two, you want your entire back straight. So I like to teach this by bringing the feet out to a very wide stance first. We'll turn the left foot out. Now, when you do that, a lot of times you see how my upper body is turning. So I need to turn my body back so that my whole backside is on the wall. And then I'm going to start to bend that front knee. It'll be your left knee. Now, in Warrior, the one thing that we don't want to do is bring that knee past the ankle. So make sure that the knee doesn't go past the ankle. You're going to press down into that back foot. You're going to press down into the front foot. That is your isometric. The entire back is against the wall. The other thing is if you're leaning forward a little bit, I see this a lot. This is not Warrior Two. This is Warrior Two. You see the difference? From the base of the spine all the way up through the crown of the head, we're extending. Nice straight line of energy. And then we bring the arms out. I also see this. So we want to bring those shoulders back and down. Stretch the arms out. This is our Warrior. And again, you would hold this for 30 seconds. From 30 to 60 seconds. You'll come out of it, rest the arms, bring the feet back so they're parallel, and then you're going to turn the other way. Make sure that the entire back is against the wall. You can start to bend that front knee. Again, make sure the knee does not go past the ankle. You're pressing down not only in that front foot, but you're pressing back through that back foot as well. The torso is straight. So again, if we're leaning forward here, let's bring the body back so that you've got that nice line of energy all the way up through the crown of your head. So those are 3 poses to start out with. If you did mountain pose for, say, 45 seconds, go into tree, you're going to do it 45 seconds on the left, 45 seconds on the right, and then do your Warrior Two pose, first on the left and then on the right, 45 seconds. Less than 5 minutes. Do it every single day. Or start out every other day to really strengthen the body. When it comes to balance, strength comes first. You must build the strength. Once you have the strength, the balance automatically comes. So if you're trying to do tree and you're struggling here, don't struggle. Come against a wall. Give yourself the support it needs, because once you build the strength, and the strength comes from the legs, also comes from the core. You're working your core when you're doing tree. If you're wobbling here, it usually comes from the core or else from the ankle. So we're strengthening the legs, we're strengthening the core. And once you have the strength, the tree pose coming off the wall will happen naturally. All right. So that's a little bit about how you can incorporate yoga into a practice so that you can build strong, healthy bone. That's all that I wanted to talk about tonight. See if there's any questions here. Looks like no questions. Remember that my live sessions, you can ask questions. If you can't come live on Monday nights at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, you can always write comments as well. I check the comments every once in a while. So if you've got questions, you can certainly do that. If you have topics that you would love for me to talk about, go ahead as well, put them in the comments. If you have not subscribed to my channel, I recommend that you do. That way you won't miss out. You'll be notified every time I have a new video. And next week, on February 8th, next week, I'm going to start talking about bone-friendly foods. So next week, bone-friendly foods, how to get the calcium, the vitamin C, and other nutrients through food so that you don't have to rely so much on supplements. Yes, supplements are also important, but we also have to be mindful of our diet. So next week, I'm going to start talking about some of the nutrition and some of the foods that you can eat and incorporate. So Terry, thank you. Yeah. So if you've got any other questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. And again, that's all for tonight. So I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.